It's been 12 years. 12 years since Melanie and I stood together, making promises we thought would last forever. In the beginning, it was all about planning, setting goals, building a future. I remember when we mapped out our lives as though they were spreadsheets. Each year accounted for, each milestone carefully calculated. I'm a financial advisor after all. Precision is my thing. But somewhere along the way, I stopped looking at her the way I used to. She became more of a partner in the numbers than in life. We built something, didn't we? A house, a joint account, investments. We made decisions together, except we didn't, not really. Melanie got busy with her work and I buried myself in mine. I suppose we grew apart like two parallel lines that seemed to converge when we first met, but eventually drifted into their own worlds. I still remember how she used to laugh at my jokes, how we'd take walks on weekends, dreaming of a family we never had. And now I hardly recognize the woman who shares my bed. There's a quiet distance between us now. It's not just the late nights she spends at conferences, or the secretive glances she throws when I ask about her day. It's the silence, the weight of it that fills the spaces in our home. Every time I try to talk to her, I feel her pulling away like she's already somewhere else. Somewhere I'm not invited. But I don't say anything. I just keep going, keep building because that's what I know. Keep planning, keep investing. Maybe that's what I thought love was. The call came on a Tuesday evening just as I was sitting in the kitchen, sifting through documents. Melanie was supposed to be in Miami for a sales conference, but when her name flashed on my phone, something about the timing felt off. I picked up, expecting the usual, something about a late flight or a new client. But her voice, calm and detached, cut through the air like a knife. "I'm not coming home," she said, and my stomach tightened. I set the pen down slowly, listening to the stillness around me. "I've met someone," she continued as if it was a casual fact. Her voice didn't falter, but there was something in the way she said it that made my chest feel heavy. "It's Russell," she added, each word like a hammer hitting something fragile inside me. Russell, her boss. The man she'd spent late nights with, the one I never thought much of. He understood her, she said. He saw her potential. I didn't say anything. I just let her talk, the words barely reaching me. She twisted the knife then, telling me she'd already emptied our joint account. "My lawyer said it was the smart move," she added, as if that somehow made it right. I didn't scream. I didn't even argue. I just sat there, feeling the blood drain from my face as I processed her betrayal. It didn't feel like anger at first. It just felt empty. I couldn't even bring myself to respond. I only managed a quiet, "I understand." But I didn't understand. Not yet. I just listened as she told me about her new life, her new future with Russell. I could hear the finality in her voice, but I wasn't ready to believe it. Something felt wrong, something bigger than just a broken marriage, a stolen future. I had to let it all sink in before I could even think about what to do next. I sat there for a long time after the call ended, the phone still buzzing on the counter as if trying to reach me again. But I didn't pick it up. Instead, I stared at the cold, empty space where our lives had been, and I felt nothing. Numb, maybe, but not surprised. Deep down, I had known. It was hard to ignore the signs that had been piling up for months. The missed calls from Russell late at night. The dinners she'd claimed were business meetings, but I could never get the details right. The way she'd hide her phone or step outside to take calls. I told myself I was just overthinking it, just being paranoid. But I'd been wrong. It was all true. She was leaving me for him. It stung, sure. But what hurt more wasn't the affair. It was the realization that I had let it all slip by, too focused on the work, on the plan, on the future I thought we were building. We'd been so busy with the numbers, I hadn't even seen the cracks in front of me. It was all there if I just stopped to look. I closed my eyes, trying to feel something, anything. Anger maybe, or sadness. But there was nothing. Just a quiet acceptance of what had happened. And then, like an afterthought, the financial mess she had left behind. The joint account drained. But she didn't know that I had already taken precautions. I had already seen this coming. Still, the betrayal wasn't just in the money. It was in the fact that I had trusted her, believed in something that wasn't real anymore. I didn't feel rage. Not yet. Instead, I felt a deep, hollow ache. The kind you can't quite place, the kind that settles in your chest like a heavy stone, and it made everything else seem insignificant. What was left? What was the point of it all now? As I sat there, the weight of it all started to sink in, but my mind was already working, running through the details, calculating the next move. I didn't feel anger, not yet. Instead, I felt an odd calm, a quiet clarity. I'd been expecting this. Maybe not in this exact way, but I had known something was coming. I had seen the signs, the small shifts, and I had planned for them. Months ago, I'd started restructuring our finances just in case. I'd moved the bulk of our assets into a separate trust, one that Melanie didn't know about. It was subtle. She never noticed, too distracted with her work, her late nights, her meetings with Russell. I didn't want to believe what was happening, but I couldn't deny the signs anymore. I wasn't about to let her walk away with everything, not after everything I'd built. The trust was my safety net, a backup plan I'd put in place when things started to unravel. I hadn't told her about the changes. She hadn't asked. In hindsight, I could see how she had slipped further away while I quietly anticipated this moment. She thought she had control. But I had taken steps, small ones, but they were enough. It wasn't just about protecting money anymore. Melanie's betrayal was part of something bigger, something I wasn't yet sure of. Maybe it had been part of a larger scheme, with Russell pulling the strings behind the scenes. But it didn't matter. I had the leverage now. The thought gave me a strange sense of power, though it felt hollow. I wasn't interested in revenge. I was just doing what had to be done to keep everything intact. Tomorrow, I'd watch her discover what pending really meant. Let her think she had won. Let her believe she had taken everything from me. But she hadn't. Not yet. The doorbell rang, pulling me from my thoughts. I stood up, my legs feeling heavier with each step. She was here. Melanie. I opened the door, and there she stood, her makeup perfect as always, but something in her eyes told me she wasn't the same woman I had married. She didn't look angry or sad. She looked resolute. "I need to talk," she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Her voice was steady, too steady, like she'd rehearsed the conversation 100 times. I nodded and motioned toward the living room, but I didn't sit down. There was a distance between us now that felt too wide to bridge with words. She sank onto the couch and I stood across from her, just watching. "I've made a decision," she started, and I could feel the weight of her words before they even left her mouth. "I'm leaving you, Grant. I'm leaving for Russell." Her words hit me like a dull thud. Not a shock. Just the inevitable landing of something that had been building for months, maybe years. "You think you can just walk away?" My voice was calm, maybe too calm, but I couldn't summon anything more. I didn't want to. "I know I hurt you," she said, her voice softening. She looked down at her hands, fiddling with the edge of her sleeve like she was trying to find the right words. "But I need to be honest. He gets me. He sees my potential." She stopped, trying to catch her breath. But I wasn't listening to the justification. I wasn't hearing the lies. I had already stopped listening long before this moment. "You emptied the account," I said, my tone flat. "I saw it." She flinched but quickly recovered. "It was a smart move, Grant. My lawyer said so. It's what I'm entitled to." I felt the edges of something sharp deep inside me, but I didn't let it surface. "Entitled?" I repeated like it was a foreign word. "I see." Her eyes flickered for a second, then hardened. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't about money or Russell. It's about me. I've spent so long building my career, and I need someone who understands that." "Someone who understands what?" I asked, my voice colder now. "How to take what isn't theirs?" Her jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. Instead, she stood up, her hands trembling just slightly as she reached for her purse. "I'm sorry it had to be this way, Grant, but I've made my choice." I said nothing. I just watched as she turned and walked to the door, the weight of her words still hanging in the air. She hadn't apologized, not really. She hadn't acknowledged the wreckage she left behind. It was as if she had made her decision long ago and was now just cleaning up the mess. When she stepped out, I closed the door behind her without a word. There was no more to say. I didn't feel anger or hurt. I just felt empty. She had already taken what she wanted. What remained wasn't the woman I had married. It was someone I barely recognized, someone I had stopped trusting long before. And now I was just a man left to rebuild from the ashes. After Melanie left, the house felt colder than I expected. The silence seemed to press against me, filling the space between the walls, the way it had filled the space between us for so long. I stood in the living room for a while, staring at the empty air where she had just been. She had packed up and walked out, leaving only the remnants of our life together. I tried to picture how we got here, but it wasn't as easy as retracing steps. The signs had been subtle at first, small things that didn't seem important. Missed anniversaries. Late nights she claimed were work trips but always ended up being more than that. I could still remember the times I planned a weekend getaway for us, only for her to cancel at the last minute because of some important commitment. I told myself that work came first, that it was all temporary, that we were just too busy with our careers. But looking back, I see the cracks now, the ones I ignored. Physical intimacy had dwindled to almost nothing. When we did touch, it felt like a task to check off, a requirement rather than a desire. The first time I noticed the distance between us was at a conference in Aspen. I had planned a weekend for our anniversary, but when I told her, she hesitated. "I can't cancel this, Grant. It's a sales retreat. It's important." So I went alone. It wasn't that she didn't care. I think she cared in her way, but her way wasn't enough anymore. She got lost in her career, in her ambition, and I got lost in mine. Our plans, our goals, they didn't include each other the way they used to. I buried myself in spreadsheets, in investments, in securing our future. But I never stopped to wonder if she was still in the same picture. Now, sitting alone in our living room, the truth was clear. The marriage had ended long before she left. We'd been living like strangers, passing each other by while we both chased different versions of success. I didn't want to admit it to myself until now, but it was the truth. She had already checked out, and I had too in my own way. The betrayal stung, but it was more than that. It was the realization that we had both stopped trying long before we knew it was over. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I just felt resigned. This wasn't just about her leaving me. It was about facing the fact that I had let it happen. That I had allowed us to drift so far apart, even when I had the power to stop it. I sat at the kitchen table, the soft glow of the laptop screen illuminating the darkness around me. I wasn't sure how long I'd been sitting there, minutes, hours, but I couldn't seem to pull myself away from the numbers on the screen. Melanie's words echoed in my mind, but they felt distant now, as if they belonged to someone else's life. "I've met someone else. I'm leaving." I emptied our account. The email notification popped up and I clicked it almost absent-mindedly. It was from the bank. Transfer request, $212,000 from joint account, pending approval. I felt my pulse quicken, but not with panic. No, I wasn't surprised. I had been waiting for this moment. When she emptied the account, I knew it was coming. I had planned for it. Months ago, when the cracks in our marriage started showing, I had taken action. I moved our real assets into a separate trust. It was a small move, almost unnoticeable at the time, but I had anticipated this exact scenario. I had prepared for her to do exactly what she had done. The transfer was pending, and I was the one who had the power to approve or deny it. My hand hovered over the mouse, the cursor blinking in front of me. I could stop it now. I could hit deny, and end this, end her. But something stopped me. I could almost hear her voice in my head, her cold rationalization for everything, the way she had justified every decision, every betrayal. Let her think she won. Let her believe she had outsmarted me. So I did nothing. I didn't approve the transfer. I didn't deny it. I just let it sit there, waiting like a silent ticking clock. I leaned back in my chair, my mind calm, but there was a flicker of something deeper inside, something I hadn't expected. Not anger. No, that would come later. But for now, there was only quiet strategy. I had planned this. Every step, every decision, it had all led up to this moment. Let her think the transfer was still pending. Let her believe she still had control. The truth, though, was that I already had the upper hand. And when the time came, I would make sure she understood it. The doorbell rang, pulling me from my thoughts. It was still early, the house unusually quiet in the aftermath of everything that had happened. I stood up, a calmness settling over me that felt almost foreign, given the gravity of the situation. I opened the door, not knowing what to expect, but there she was, Vanessa, Melanie's closest friend, standing on the doorstep. Her face was tight, uncomfortable, like she didn't want to be here. But she was here, so I stepped aside to let her in. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, motioning for her to sit, but she didn't. She lingered near the door, as if she were trying to figure out how to start. "You know about Russell, right?" she asked, looking at me carefully, gauging my reaction. I didn't say anything. I just let her speak, the way I had done so many times before, when I already knew what was coming. "Melanie and Russell. It's been going on for months," Vanessa continued, her voice shaking slightly. "She didn't want you to find out, obviously, but it's been longer than you think." I nodded slowly, as if the news didn't register, as if it was something I had expected long before she walked in. "I know," I said quietly, though my mind wasn't on the affair itself. It had stopped being about the affair months ago. It was about the money, the plan, the future I was securing. "Are you going to do something about it?" Vanessa asked, her voice hesitant, almost pleading. She wasn't just Melanie's friend, she was caught in the middle of this mess, trying to make sense of the chaos. But I couldn't afford to feel sympathy for her. I couldn't afford to feel anything at all. "I already have," I replied calmly. "The trust, the separate accounts, everything was already in place." Melanie thought she had control, but I had been steps ahead, even before she knew it. Vanessa looked at me, her eyes searching for some sign of anger, of emotion, but I didn't give her one. "I just thought you should know," she said, biting her lip. "She asked me to get her jewelry and some of her things. She won't come back, Grant. She said she's done." I didn't react. I didn't feel anything, other than a quiet acceptance of what was unfolding. "I understand," I said, my voice steady. "I'll take care of it." The weight of it all was shifting now, but not in the way I had expected. The anger, the bitterness, it all felt like background noise to the more important things, protecting what I had left. My assets, my future, the pieces of me that Melanie had no claim to anymore. She might have thought she'd won, but she hadn't. Vanessa left soon after, taking with her a suitcase of Melanie's things. She didn't ask questions, and I didn't offer answers. When the door clicked shut behind her, I stood still for a moment, absorbing what I'd just heard. It was one more confirmation of everything I already knew. And in that silence, I made a decision. It was time to close this chapter. Time to bring this to an end. The days that followed were a blur of paperwork and legal meetings, each moment more detached than the last. I had prepared for this, but nothing could truly prepare me for the reality of it. Melanie's betrayal wasn't just an affair. It was a financial scheme, a calculated decision to tear apart everything I had worked for. I met with Thomas, my lawyer, in his office. The same office I had once visited to discuss investments for my clients, now repurposed for my own personal fallout. The weight of it all was settling in, but I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. What had happened had already been written, and the only thing left to do was move forward. "Financial misconduct, marital abandonment," Thomas said, going over the divorce strategy. "Colorado doesn't require fault for divorce, but these documents will help with the settlement." I listened as he laid out the steps, outlining the divorce petition, how we would deal with Melanie's assets and her attempts to empty the accounts. It was all matter of fact. I had to keep it that way. The more we talked, the more I realized this wasn't just about Melanie, it was about protecting what was mine, securing my future. Her betrayal had pulled the rug out from under me, but I wasn't going to let her take everything. Not now. Not ever. As the days passed, I started to feel the shift. The sting of the betrayal still sat with me, but it was beginning to dull, replaced by something else: acceptance. There was no use in fighting the truth. Melanie had already chosen her path, and now I had to choose mine. The decision to separate wasn't just about her and me. It was about me reclaiming control over my life, over my future. I focused on the next steps, finalizing the trust, securing my assets, and making sure Melanie's decisions didn't affect my financial stability. The money didn't matter as much as the principle of it. I was taking back the life I had built, brick by brick. In the quiet moments when I was alone with my thoughts, I reflected on the marriage I had tried to save. It wasn't that I didn't love Melanie anymore. It was that I had to accept that love wasn't enough. Sometimes, love isn't enough to stop a marriage from falling apart. I couldn't go back and I didn't want to. I had been holding on to a version of the past that no longer existed. Now it was time to look ahead. The divorce would be messy, no doubt. But it was also the beginning of something new. Something I was going to control. Something I could rebuild, piece by piece, on my terms. It's been months now and I'm still processing everything. The house feels different without Melanie in it, but it's quieter, cleaner. The noise of our life together, the false promises, the distant conversations, the lies, has faded into the background. It's like the space has been cleared, not just physically but emotionally as well. I don't miss the chaos, but I can't say I feel whole yet. Melanie's life, as I expected, has unraveled. Her affair with Russell, which she thought would lead her to a bigger life, has led her to nothing but ruin. Russell's career came crashing down, dragged down by a federal investigation into industrial espionage. Turns out, using Melanie to access confidential data wasn't such a great idea after all. But that wasn't my problem anymore. What's left of Melanie is a fractured version of the woman I once knew. She's working a lower-paying job now, a far cry from the executive path she had been promised. I don't take pleasure in her downfall, but there's a strange kind of justice in it. The pieces of her life fell apart and somehow I was still standing. I started working at Lunara in a consulting role focusing on financial compliance. It's a step up in many ways, more money, more stability, but it's also a constant reminder of everything that happened. My new team respects me and I'm respected within the company, but I can't shake the feeling that it's all a little hollow. The thing is, I've changed. There's no denying it. I've built something solid out of the wreckage, but I know I can't forget what happened. The betrayal, the manipulation, it all lingers in the back of my mind. It's not that I want to dwell on it, but I can't just erase it. I've learned to make peace with it though. I've learned that some things don't have closure. Some things you just have to move past, even if they never fully leave you. Melanie is gone, and so is the life I thought I would have with her. But I'm still here and I'm still moving forward. I look out at the mountains now from the back deck of my new home. It's not as big as the one we had, but it's mine. The air is fresh, the view clear, and I finally feel like I can breathe. But there's something in me, something I can't quite shake. It's not a sense of victory or satisfaction. It's just understanding. The past still lingers, but it's quieter now. I'm no longer living in the shadow of a marriage that was never truly mine. And as I step into this new chapter, I know that I'm not just rebuilding my life. I'm finally learning to live it on my own terms. But deep down I'm still wary. The scars aren't gone and I know they never will be. I'll carry them, but they won't define me. I've learned that much. The emotional distance between the man I was and the man I've become is vast. But some things, some equations never balance out neatly. Some things you just have to accept. And that's the hardest part of all. So I keep moving forward, cautiously, one step at a time. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough.